Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, so welcome, and welcome back, Alex, Shannon, Neil, or Boxer, and compare and contrast today. It's something that pretty much covers all areas of our lives, but let's look into the things that you have compared and contrast yourself with during your life. So who or what have you compared yourself to? Or who or what do you compare yourself to now? And how's that gone for you?
That's pretty full on, isn't it? Okay, so from a vocational point of view, having worked in having an understanding of animals. Speaking of one right here who's talking to me now.
Sorry guys, the dog's inviting himself up.
Dog wins. He's comparing me to a blanket. I'm going to give him the contrast. I've got skin. And he doesn't care. Having worked with animals, exotic animals, and spending some time, I guess, looking at the people who actually present an animal and the length of time they take to, it doesn't matter how good I thought I was with animals, then, you know, the contrast is that I'm not them. And it would take me time, if I chose to do that, the time of actually learning and moving into an animal presentation opportunity. That's
okay.
Compare and contrast.
Okay. So let's establish what is compare and contrast. What are you comparing that to?
Well, my ability with animals didn't automatically prove that I could do another work with other species in a safe environment, or it's just two different aspects. Being good with cats doesn't mean you're going to be good with lions.
Right. That's a good compare and contrast.
Or if you play patsies, you'll come off second best.
Thank you. Shan, Alex?
Yeah, just getting some thoughts going since the question was put forward, and I guess my synopsis or my take or my definition of compare and contrast was looking at what's the same and what's different in people and in things and or in any situation, looking at what's what's the same and what's different between yourself and others, or between others. And since you've posed the question of quick recap of my whole life, of my 21 years, and I've noticed I've done that quite a lot throughout my whole life, and I guess comparing and contrasting myself towards against my grandfather, raised by my grandfather, and was looking at what character traits, or what attributes, or what character traits that I have that are the same, what are different. Same with my father, my dad, looking at that, my colleagues, my friends, and now getting into the coaching arena, comparing and contrasting my coaching skill, my coaching style to that of other coaches, and I like watching or calibrating other coaches and how they react and respond in certain situations, certain environments when the pressure's on. What do they do to keep themselves calm, or what do what ticks them to sort of jump over the edge or go over the edge, and just constantly calibrating or constantly observing others, and the purpose for that is and the reason why I do it often is to try and better myself, and have greater awareness of myself, so I'm aware of what's happening and what things I like, what things I don't like, and constantly checking in on, oh man, do I do that or do I do this? And I must admit, I do a lot of comparing and contrasting on all levels, and in all areas of life. It's just not one area. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts, just off the cuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shan, I really liked a lot of those words that you used, actually. Compare and contrast being the same and the difference. And in a way, I heard of, what's the common factor of yourself and then people around you of areas that you do well in and they do well in, and what's the same or different between them and me, and how can I decrease that difference to excel and for direction of where you want to go in that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, they're just some wicked words. And definitely to better myself, because ultimately, if you get down to it, no matter what you do in life, it is all for you. Even if you help someone else, you get a good feeling from it. Yes. So, and I'd challenge anyone that would say anything other than that, because when you get really deep down to it, we're all here for ourselves. So ultimately, a compare and contrast to better oneself. Now, this is really, really, really beneficial when you're using it usefully, when you're comparing yourself to places that you want to be in life, at a level of compared to someone else that you can idolize and follow forward in that, and take adaptation of parts of them and parts of others, and then utilize that in your life for your pursuit of perfection, or your journey of success, and however that goes. And I like you, Shan, I do this incredibly. The one self-assessment, so continuously self-assessing, how am I doing it, what's my 1 to 10, what's my battery percentage, how am I spending my $100 on myself, or investing it into how I'm applying myself in life constantly and utilizing it. And definitely, I've said this before, but when it comes to social media, people can sit there and they're looking at the big yachts, the luxury cars, and the big houses, and the nice watches, the nice glasses, the high level brands, hunting and fishing. They just wish they could all have it. But definitely having it as a driver, not as a compare and contrast and going, oh, well, I don't have that. Done. Making it useful. Yeah, I want that. Yeah, I deserve that. I can have that. I don't have to be in the same bubble as my family has been for years and years. I can break that. I can break that bubble and make it a bigger bubble. I want to work hard enough so that my family and friends can all have those toys too, and not if I won $1 million. So utilizing all those that useful, wealthy mindset behind it to create a healthy compare and contrast. I know I've done this so much in my life. So my parents split when I was 4, and by about 10, definitely there was a big gap between a doing well and within some sort of poverty, not so well, not so well, could do better in a way. And so I had a huge compare and contrast balance. So I had a lot of one and a lot of another. So I had a lot of let's go do stuff with my dad, and there was always what his word was the final word. There was no arguing it. It was you know, and it was, I just had to do what I was told. I was supposed to be seen and not heard. And like, you know, level of question is the level of the answer. So a dumb question gets a dumb answer. And that was where he came at it from. And it was hard, you know, and then I'd come to mum's and it was just absolute love. Whatever you do is right. Like, I want to hear everything that you say because, you know, your version matters, and just a big difference. But we didn't go do exactly the same stuff that Dad and I do, always out motorbike riding and stuff. But it was the balance that made it really important for me now. And I didn't sit there at all, I know, and think, oh man, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. And I mean, this is my generalization, distortion, deletion of information right where I sit now. But I was just so thankful that it was such a contrast. And for years and years and years, especially during my teenage years, just trying to please Dad, trying to do the right thing for him so that he could acknowledge that. And I remember just, it was like a wild goose chase, you know. I was just never getting anywhere. There was always something I did wrong. And mentally, it just really wasn't good for me. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she'd get all frustrated because of how I'd get frustrated at myself because of how I tried to please Dad, but it never worked out like that. And it was not that easy at all. You know, some of the most times I'd cry was over just disappointing him, and I just beat my head against the brick wall type of thing. And so that was my teenage years, and it was about until I got into my apprenticeship. Like, I remember Dad said to me, this was such a big learning for me. He said, pure compare and contrast. He said, maybe I was 15. I was working at work with him at the workshop, and, you know, I'd have to earn what I got a lot with Dad, and that was great. It taught me so much. So one level, like, you know, I was working for free for him, but I was creating him money, which created us to do cool stuff as well. And he said to me, mate, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, well, I want to be a mechanic. And we were sitting in the we were standing in the mechanical workshop, because there's 2 workshops of it, and he goes, nah, you don't want this, mate. You don't want to be like 2 of his workers, you know, they've got a family, they've got a mortgage, but that's all they've got in life. And I said, hold on. No, you're a mechanic, aren't you? And he goes, yep. And I said, well, I want to be like you. You've got 2 businesses, you've got a nice house, we go do all the cool things. And you see him go, oh, well, mate, it's very different. You should be going along the line of business. And I remember that huge compare and contrast, and going, well, these people that are working for you haven't got that push to want to go and have more and do better. They're going to sit there and wish for it. And I can see how you've done it, you know, dropped out of school at 15. He had, I don't even think he got school C, and he went straight into an apprenticeship, 15 years old. And he just busted his ass, you know. He'd spent his, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 hours doing his apprenticeship, got his apprenticeship like that, and really, really hustled and worked for it. And then had all the nice jobs while he was starting to create, when he finally got the opportunity to get a business. And so, like, over the years, I've heard this again in different ways, and again and again. And it's not about having a business teaching, it's about having a business mindset. And I was doing the compare and contrast, and I'd instantly seen that the beneficial of having an education was not high on my agenda. And I'd seen constantly people who'd failed in a schooling system do really, really well in a life, in how they created business to be their lifestyle. Because success at that ultra rich thing is not, money perspective is usually they just want more and more and more and more and more, and enough is never enough. There's never a stop point for a successful person. It's always the next thing. And that's what I see throughout all the business people that I've found in my life, is they're always for the next thing. And so taking that common factor of, okay, next step, okay, next step, okay, next step, okay, that's really good, Alex. What's next? And so now with my dancing, the first couple of years, it was always, it is everything we do, every competition we go to, every little success is given. So every time we get through to the next heat, or a semi or a final, or we just come off going, man, I just, I really enjoyed that dancing, and I don't think I could have given it any more. So feeling inside, assessing it, and then coming back to my coach, and he goes, yeah, I don't know, I could have had a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so you compare and contrasting, okay, yep, I see that. Because what we do as a compare and contrast in our practice should be identical to go onto the floor, because you've worked with all the boundaries and how to work with everything, in terms of like you practice until you not practice until you get it right, but practicing until you can't get it wrong. And so practice to take exactly what we do in our studio and put it onto the floor. Now there's heaps of different variables with that, and to acknowledge those different variables and really try to calm down and work with them and through them, and trust that all your cells in your body have done it already, so it can do it again. And all the different factors that come into it, just all the different factors that come into it, you have already done already, and just trusting yourself in it, but assessing as you go, and trying to meet that feeling inside that it's still enjoyable for you. I mean, most levels of whatever you do, is it still enjoyable for you? If it's not, what can I learn from it? And then I guess, is it healthy for my life? If it goes down the level of notch, is it just because it's hard, or is it because you're about to make a breakthrough and then just explode in your understanding and comprehension of whatever you're doing? I know for my dancing that definitely happens. You just have some of the hardest nights practicing, and you just feel like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you come back. I feel I'm a big believer in body comprehension, and your cells sleep with it, and they understand. They learn to understand what you're trying to ask of it, because it's new things all the time. And then you just make a breakthrough. This is absolute pearl, of new information in your body, and your allowances of what it can do. And especially for me in my sport, is to work together with another person and everything that they're feeling and everything that they're going through, and benefiting from that.
Wow.
Awesome.
So I think the compare and contrast factor is something that seems quite fluid within your language. Thank you for your share. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for your share.
Awesome.
Yeah, I thought I'd share one that's really affected my life from a very young age. Compare and contrast. It's sort of media driven, and therefore how it affected me both negatively and positively, what I did inside of it. Now, that is, as a young woman, when we're looking to how to do makeup, how to dress, what to, who are we in the world? Are we attractive? Are we, do we fit something? So, of course, it was models at that stage in life. So it was models, and we were always looking to, we being the females and of my age, we're looking to models to reflect how to present ourselves into society. And so they had really, really skinny models at that time in life. Twiggy had been around, and then we'd sort of gone to the Elle Macphersons and the Rachel Hunters. Now, these are all old names now in history, but at the time they very much imprinted my life and my way of being. So the way it negatively affected me was in an eating way. So I would eat less and less and less in order to be slim and skinny like a model. And that effect in my process, I didn't go to bulimic or anorexic, but I was sitting on real fine. And every reference, whether I was exercising or that sort of thing, although I didn't know it, was referencing and comparing and contrasting to these models, someone that had been chosen by a fashion industry to wear clothes like a coat hanger in order to sell clothes. And so the whole build-up was, there'd be billboards and there'd be TV advertisements and that sort of thing that heavily promoted these certain looks. Now, it was kind of cool because at that stage, Rachel Hunter got a perm. And all of a sudden I was being likened because of my hair at the time. I don't know if anyone remembers the Fuji and the trumpet ads. So this perm in the 80s was a cool thing. So all of a sudden my hair went from uncool to cool. That was cool. That was nice. That was a nice little win of a compare and a contrast. So this dictated a lot, and it really dictated for me because I went down the wardrobing and image and makeup out. Even though I was a legal secretary at the time, I started to learn outside of there to try and fit in, to get better, to be more beautiful or more attractive or more something. It so happened that I'd have moments which were really not cool about that as a young woman, really not cool, as I compared and contrasted myself amongst my friends, or a pretty girl that other people that were with me, because I had a lot of male mates at the time, and they'd all be attracted to, I don't know what it was at the moment, but they'd be attracted to a part, and then the brain goes, oh, compare and contrast, oh no, oh wow, that was a loss. So it was kind of like I was playing a win and a loss thing inside of the compare and contrast. It certainly didn't build a wonderfully high self-esteem if I was in a loss moment, but if I felt like I was in a win moment, then of course I'd feel a bit better. So I was on this yo-yo of compare and contrast, and this attractive, not attractive, attractive, not attractive, fitted, didn't fit, blah blah blah. What was really interesting and that brought a real fascinating thing to me, and I don't know how I came around it, but when I fell pregnant, it was unexpected, and I was 23. And as I started to rechange my thinking and my values, I looked at how much I'd been affected by media around this real psychological battle in myself. And I made an internal decision at that time, so this is 25, nearly 26 years ago, to not support the media effing mess that it did to my head. Now, this is really interesting. So my silent, and it lasts to this day, my silent protest was to not buy any magazines. So to not buy the magazines of the day, the New Idea and the Q Fashion and the magazines of the day. So it was only sort of like a $5, $6, and now probably $11, $15 a week or a month purchase. That was my silent protest. And so I never have those magazines around, because I didn't know if I was having a little boy or a little girl at the time. But I decided I didn't want them to have to go through, you know, we as parents think that we can actually make a difference in this, which of course we learn we can't. But that was my little protest. And it has, I made that decision and I've lived by that decision. Does it really matter? Well, actually, if I did a lot of calculations, you know, over those years, 26 years of not paying X amount of $50 a month or something on magazines, etc., it's probably a compilation of money. But ultimately, it started something within me to decide who I would choose to compare and contrast myself to. Who was I wanting to compare myself to? Not what was the media going to present for me to compare and contrast myself to. So at first it was trying to find a woman in, am I going on too much here?
Nope,
But, yeah, at first it was trying to find women who were, I don't know if I wanted to be a leader, but I wanted to be really good at what I did. And trying to find women leaders or women mentors was quite a difficult thing in life at the time, and it wasn't until I got my own formula around that, because I couldn't look to my family for what I wanted to be a businesswoman. I had wonderful mentors and women to look to as to be a mum and a carer and a nurturer and that kind of thing, but not for this business thing. So I was really fortunate to have an amazing boss who was quite unique in her field at that time in the area of training. And I did model myself off her a little bit. But we also had one, the receptionist, who looked a lot like our boss, and she was called Mini Me, as in the mini one of the boss. At the time, she did everything. She modeled so beautifully, you'd sort of see a shadow of the boss walking around the office. It was beautifully modeled. And so, of course, I then didn't want to be that. So then I had to be my unique self. And it was just this inner fascination. So after that time, my next formula, because this is true, I've thought this through a lot. My next formula was, all right, I don't always love some of the leadership things that I see in people. And there's a lot of males had some of the leadership qualities I wanted, but they were males. So then I began to look at the personality traits or the behaviors or the values and start picking out and making my own little formula within that. And I think that was the most successful aspect, when I didn't feel so pulled and pushed so much. I could move towards it because I felt like I was in a little bit of control around my choice. And if I didn't measure up within myself, I was self-comparing to my own formula. Yeah, so that's when didn't it work for me and when did it begin to work for me? In a compare and contrast, which I think is across every area of our life. You go to the gym, it shows up there. You go to a clothes shop, it shows up. Are you a size 8, a size 12, a size 16, and a size 18? You're comparing yourself to, what do I look like in this dress or that dress, these shoes or this shoes. Compare and contrast driving. It just doesn't stop.
I've got something really like that. When I was hitting the gym a lot more than I do now, but my focus was to get, quite muscly. I was 15 kgs up on what I am now, and just the development of muscle and to get bigger and bigger. And I'd be in my mirror in my room, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's nice. Oh yeah, good, Alex. And then it was just you always felt quite good. And then I'd go hit the gym in the morning, and I'd see someone walk past, and his bicep was bigger than my head. His bicep was like my legs, and I was like, holy moly. Oh, you're just pathetic, Alex. Absolutely pathetic. And then I'd spend my whole gym session talking myself out of that. Just, man, you are doing so well for where you are at. And and work with what you've got, because these guys, it's something called genetics, and some people can start a lot earlier than others, and just, you know, it's about the process of trusting in that where you want to go, you'll get over time. And so now my compare and contrast goes to my dancing. So I've had to actually lose a lot of mass, a lot of physical muscle, and even more so now to look like, because I look big on Robin, and that's that compare and contrast of what the dancer's look is, and just really appreciating the journey. And so it's a level of compare and contrast with who we want to model when we dance, and then it's now like, what do the top guys look like, and how are they producing what they're producing? And what they produce is very classical, and luckily our coach is very classical as well in his thinking, and it's what we're always looking for. We're not looking for the fluff of the amazing arm lines and the lots of arm lines and busy and fast and snap, snap, snap. What we're tending to like more is a lot of the more chilled and more classical, softer arm lines, just making it look so easy instead of bam, 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 bam. It's just effortless. And so that's what the top people produce, and that's what we produce actually, and that's why we've gotten some of the results we've gotten. And half of it's a little bit of a genetical look, you know, just a couple that's been put together that look well on each other. And this is the crazy thing about my sport, is I did not like at all the compare and contrast of myself to someone else on a dance floor. And when I first started competing without Robin, and I hated that someone look at you and look at them and go, oh, I like them more. I liked motocross because, you know, you'd either come first or last. and I liked the winning aspect of that. You were the first across the line. So then to go from that to then my values changed, and my love for the movement and physical movement and timing and rhythm overcame my not like for the compare and contrast levels. And then when you start winning, you start changing your aspect, and you start thinking, oh, maybe something I'm doing is right.
Yeah. I was just loving how we've been blending the words, because compare and contrast. So a lot of what we've spoken about is compare, and just now I'm getting a distinction. So a contrast is when you've got something that stands out from another thing. It's different than. Yeah, so if we start playing within this for a moment, so a contrast in colour might be green and red. They contrast, they're not so much of a blend. So if I look to nature for this level of conversation for a moment, if I look to nature, if you compare a rose with a sunflower or a orange with a lemon, you'll go through, these are similar, they're a flower if it's the flowers, or they're a citrus. Yes, or they're a citrus. But so contrast, then you contrast between the two things. An orange and a lemon, one's sweeter, one's more sour. But a real contrast would be a lemon to a peanut, or the way some flowers have, let's say, a purple center and an orange outside. They're very contrasting. And this is where we can look to contrast as a beautiful thing, a standout aspect, a uniqueness, something that is uniquely us, uniquely you, your thumbprint on the world, your way of doing something. So I'm just throwing that up as an idea here, so that we go comparing and contrasting. Yeah, it is that. And then there's the beautiful side of contrast. It's when something just doesn't quite sit on in place, But if it's uniquely done, it is exactly the way it's supposed to be. If you talk about genetics, Alex, the body that we have, the way we've lived our life, what's happened to us, or the way we were dragged up or brought up or uplifted or pushed down or anything like that has uniquely made us who we are. When we compare our lives to another person, we may find similarities, we may find differences. When we look for the contrast, we may deregulate, why that word, we may put ourselves into a unique situation and go to, oh my God, I've had a terrible life, I'm a victim, or the victim mentality. This is so sad for me. I've never got my opportunities. I've never got my things. I was just born this way. It's in my genetics. It's just what's happening in the world. It's just But by contrast to that, there'll be some gift inside of that upbringing that you have that is just, because of those experiences, you bring a richness that is unique and contrasting. And of course, everything I just said could be said the opposite way too. Mm-hmm. And would be a fascinating conversation. I had a great upbringing. Everything was fine. I always got great opportunities. I experienced being...
And that's just a wealthy versus poverty mindset.
Yeah, but the victim can still... Yeah, so this wealthy poverty mindset will show up in what we're comparing to, who we're comparing to, and the contrast we choose to take inside of those reactions. Maybe.
So in the beginning of this, I wasn't ready for Karyn's question at all, because I haven't compared myself or wanted to be anybody else ever. I just haven't. I haven't looked at someone on a pedestal who's had good roles, good presented role models, good beliefs. I haven't looked at them and gone, I want to be like you. I just never have. So potentially, I've been told I'm a mismatcher. And in aspects, I certainly am. What that does is that leaves me in contrast. So in levels of permanent contrast, you're never meeting another person's model of the world. You just can't. And if that person believes so strongly in the model of their world that their values are more important than yours, then you will never build rapport and you'll never get on. So I was a little bit taken. So you got a little speech about lions
and kittens
and how if they're not the same, and if you play with a kitten and play with a lion, chances are you're gonna get killed. So that's what you got instead of the contrast. There's 4 of us here in this conversation, and I want to be and compare and contrast with everyone here. So we have a view on one thing and then we have a view on another, and actually that creates a beautiful conversation where things link and become important, so that no one person has the final view. I probably at some stage, and a few times probably, have been, well, this is my way. If you don't like it, piss off. There is no allowance for the contrast. My dad showed his own way. I mean, he's passed now, and he's lived his life the way he's decided to. He got upset, he'd just leave. There's no contrast. He didn't allow for those sort of things in his black and white world to have anyone else's opinion affect his world. So compare and contrast. It's a new thing for me, and it's how to find healthy versions when everyone has an opinion, when it comes down to people, because we all have the same intent. We want people to be loved, we want them to be happy, healthy, and all that sort of stuff. And when it comes down to talking about your dad, Alex, you know what I mean, like, hindsight is a wonderful thing, how you can watch it play out. It's a beautiful thing, and I've had those moments with my dad too, and anyway, that's my 2 cents worth for compare and contrast. It's complete opposites, the ability to equalise, blend, respect, love, whether it be through religion, whether it be through business models or whatever it might be. And certainly...
One really interesting thing, Boxer, with how you say that is probably the balance across how you've mentioned it is, well, while we've been building our shed, I'm just like, oh, let's just chuck it up. And you're like, well, no. Compare it to a shed that would be properly built. I want someone to come along here and just go, yep, that's done right. So that, from my vision, that's where you're not a mismatcher, and it has to be done to a certain.
I agree, and I'm certainly enjoying the process, and getting to share so much with you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, I had my bit. Shane, come on.
That needs to him sit in it.
Tag. Yeah, no, awesome. I enjoy what you say, but I'm sure you can, other mismatches, I'm sure you can compare very well with other mismatches.
I know, you avoid them, bro. Because, even Karyn will tell you there's a strategy in mismatches. And
I bet, and you would know. Yeah, no, I just enjoy what everyone was saying, and some things that I was thinking about as Karyn was speaking, Alex was speaking, and also Boxer there, was how sometimes you touched on it before, when we compare and contrast, it may demotivate us, depending on what we're comparing or contrasting against. And I was just thinking, sometimes that can move us away or demotivate us from being the person who we want to be, or who we would like to be. And those that push through that can find how the contrast and the uniqueness in that can motivate them to be who they want to compare and contrast against. I was thinking that, and I was just, as you were talking, and I couldn't help but think how comparing and contrasting is, in my head, or in my view of the world, is heavily associated and linked to our values and our beliefs, and that well, in essence, our values is what motivates us or drives us to go to wherever we want to go, or reach the goals that we're wanting to achieve in life. And as you were talking, when I've contrasted myself to others, and reflecting on these times where I played the victim game, or felt, oh no, I'm never gonna have 47-inch pythons. I'm only gonna settle with 21-inch pythons. And those moments where you're like, oh no, I can't be like that, or whatever, it has had an impact on me. But then it's not until I find that uniqueness in my makeup that then propels me or pushes me through that. And I liked how you said, Karyn, you realise you're unique. There's no one else like you. And only you are you. And when you find that gem inside you that makes you uniquely you, any of those negative or those demotivators that you you sort of have around you, or those beliefs that you've set in those limiting beliefs that you've placed, or those boundaries that you've placed on yourself. It's only then where you can slowly break through that, and when you can see what's stopping you. When you identify, man, yeah, I've had this upbringing, but that's why I'm who I am now. When you do a lot of that comparing and contrasting, and I like what you said when you contrast a lemon with a peanut. And when you're a peanut, you're thinking, oh no, I'm not sour.
I'm just nutty.
I'm just a nut. But then when you realize that when a nut is dipped in something sour, or have got coating or flavour, or been added to it makes it a sour nut. And a lemon is just the sour. Do you know what I mean? Finding that contrast that makes it unique.
Yeah.
And that's what I've enjoyed with this, with comparing and contrasting my coaching abilities and my character traits to that of other things and other people, to find out what is uniquely me. Why do I do things? And most times when I do stuff, there are some similar things that I do, but I know there's, like, told that, some things I do in my coaching styles out the box is totally different, and finding what makes me different within myself, to try another style or another way. And I can't help but comment on and someone that I'm admiring at the moment is Coach Nolene Todua, who is the Silver Ferns netball coach, and how she's just changed within a short period of time. I think New Zealand didn't even make top 4, and in a year she was able to turn that whole system, culture around to be world champions. And a lot of the things that she has implemented has gone against or been contrast to years previous. And to have the success that she has had in a short period of time, she's doing things that no other coach has done before. And that's contrast. That, to me, that's what I believe is a contrasting in styles, and just looking and seeing, and what's unique about her is she not only does she have systems and that in place, but she sees the individuals for who they are and the potential or where they could possibly go, and is more focus around the players, and how she's implemented other styles. So, like, getting basketball coaches and other coaches from other codes and other sports to come in and input and share into her style. And she's not just thinking or looking in the netball realm. She's opening her mind into what works in other areas in the sporting world, and why are they successful, looking at and comparing and contrasting her sport to other sports. And it's just I really like how you were talking about the contrasting ness, and how you can find, although you're totally different, there's contrast, there's a uniqueness in there. And understand, that's why I'm the way I am, and that's unique, because there's no one else like that, or like me. But imagine, what would it be like if someone was like me?
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
How would
love
that
it.
like, Shan, if you had to have a conversation with someone exactly like you?
Oh, I think I would love it for a moment.
And after that, it would be, he did it.
Yeah.
But I'm unique.
He wants to talk to you.
Yeah, interesting conversation. I like you said, never really thought of that until we've had this discussion, and just mind. It's interesting how the mind just think of stuff and bring it up, and
yeah,
just lovely conversation.
Our current environment, we know we're surrounded by science opinion. We're surrounded by so many opinions that how do we contrast to that? We just really kind of can't.
maybe we can. Yeah, I don't know.
I really feel like it's what you choose to make important to you. Like information, all knowledge is just information until you make it useful for you. And then you can be wise about the decisions you make around that and within that.
Oh, I agree with that. And if the concept of compare and contrast in a conversation is that two people can have differing opinions and arrive at a place of balance, there's no balance. If information is all coming one way and you must adhere to it, how do we work? Because in our general conversating all around the world, we are figuring out what role we play. We don't really want to be told the role we're playing. We're thinking, romanticising that we're on a big team. And for compare and contrast, I mean, we know, I mean, I was just thinking about the simplicity of a glass of water, a cup half full or a cup half empty. That is actually compare and contrast in balance. Because the physical cup it's just got something in it. But someone's opinion is the person who thinks their cup's half empty is poor mindset. And the person whose cup is half full is an abundant mindset.
I have a really cool version of that cup thing. So I had, when teaching this one lady, I was just adding to her each week, adding bits of information, trying to make it useful, trying to make sure that she walked out of the lesson with something relevant.
Is this dance teaching? Yeah,
dance teaching. And always just giving her new things, and then eventually sitting back and going, okay, well, let's practice some of these. And Marcus, my teacher, goes like, wow, you just look so busy, to my student. And he goes, just relax some things off, mate. So I was like, okay. So I talked to her like she was a cup. We'd been filling her cup up, and always just with new information. So it was overflowing, and some of the older things were just coming out, or the things from last week would just go out because she's still trying to work on the older information. So I said, let's forget about almost everything and just stick to a routine. So let's take some out of your cup, and then let's work with something that you can actually make really, really plausible and apply and consistently apply until it's a really good body knowledge. So let's take some out of your cup until you don't have to think about it anymore. And then let's put a little bit more in your cup and just make that so it doesn't fill the cup up. It's just in the cup, and then it becomes the cup in a way.
That's cool.
So
So
that is like the compare and contrast coming in to actually have the balance. A little bit out, a little bit in, like a conversation between people who want to conversate and be friendly. Yeah.
And then just realizing that sometimes you just have to agree to disagree with some people, because they've got such a contrasting mindset and they're so fixed in it that in a way, if they're wanting to, in my version, argue about it, then let them be them and agree to disagree and agree that, hey, look, their version is right to them.
Mm.
And if they're not, at some levels, for an argument, if they're not wanting to see another version of the world, and just allow that.
Mm. So, love it. And I guess this conversation that you guys are having now is a whole other model of the world too, because there's so much depth that we can go to in that level of conversation. So,
but that comes down to, like, because what we've been talking about is a lot of comparison, a lot of comparing. You know, comparing yourself to someone and finding your common factor, like Shanen said, to build on that. And then that actually more comes into the contrasting when relating with someone, or however you're contrasting.
so
It's windy here.
Yeah. I mean, everything operates. Well, if we talk about looking at the way the emotional body works, I mean, there's a use for all the feelings, and they'll be complete compare and contrast, you know, because, I mean, what, you know, there's so many applications of healthy conversation around it. Some person gets a bit of information, they might instantly cry. Another person gets a bit of information, same information, they instantly get angry. You know, and how we navigate that sort of, even within ourselves, because I've seen people laughing and crying.
Yeah, so this is, according to me, this is the meaning making of it. So if we go right down to the basics of the sensations in the body, how can we it will be a compare and contrast process that we go through to work out what is warm compared to cold, what is warm compared to hot, what is bright compared to dull, what is dull compared to dark, what is loud compared to quiet compared to soft. So there's all this, we're constantly obviously navigating this within our system. So there'll be some, right now I'm just thinking there'll be some level of compare just in our own systems, some kind of normalized way that this is this, this is this, this is this. And any level of informational interaction with the external world will be comparing it against that. So if our system reacts to something, and compared to how we were a moment ago before we heard that information, it's all of a sudden turned up the heat or cooled it down or dimmed an image or brightened it or set off an irritating noise. I'm just using the senses as examples. This will probably be what's happening inside, let alone the idea that it's different from someone else's belief or thought or opinion or something. We're comparing it to something. So there must be some speedy interactions inside of the body to be navigating. This must be it, according to Karyn right now, navigating the fact that we even have an opinion separate, the same or different. There must be something that's feeding that we're comparing to. I know when I got up this morning and I first got on the yoga mat to when I was halfway through to when I was at the end were very different comparisons. And at one point I was like, that's what I was after. So I was navigating my system through to that sense of flow feeling. But at the start, I didn't go, I want to feel that sense of flow. I just thought, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm doing. That's a bit tight there. What am I? Compared to what? You know, we're comparing it all the time. Then when we're going through content inside of it, wow.
Content is a bit of a changer. Yeah. Yeah. Hey guys.
Hey.
Still here. Just really took me down a questioning path, and I guess that really turns up into a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, and that's the concept of, to me, like, as I say, I'll reiterate it for myself, is that learning the healthy compare and contrast instead of just giving a point of view and that's it. You know, like, it's a healthy conversation, how to, yeah, I've done that.
Oh, I love it.
I've done that. Sorry to anyone who felt that.
Okay.
And yeah, and just that's it. It's just like, where can we go?
Okay, guys. So right now, let's do our current version, or our current summary, or our current offering to finish off with. Where has this conversation of our comrades, where has this taken you to now? Where has this taken you to now? Or what are you taking from here that's useful?
So I feel that, because we're meaning-making machines, and the compare and contrast level of who you compare to or not can be really useful or really disempowering at all levels, and how you make use of that at each point in time. So I feel like wanting the next level for, or wanting to be that next level for what I want in my life, and really at another level of just really understanding more of where you're at now. So taking the screenshot now, understanding where you're at, what you're doing well, what you can improve on, but what you're doing well, you know, what's good in life. And just really taking a minute for yourself, and taking a day, taking a year of what I've got is really good. So then that you can understand deeper into the next level of what you're wanting as well, for that, for your growth or for your development, for your wants and for your needs. Modeling off top people that you associate to, that you feel that that's where you want to go, modeling off that ebb, and really enjoying each moment with yourself too, for that, you know, where you are will be totally different to who you're trying to model. And the other thing I love is that you can model off that bit of that person, that bit of that person, that bit of that person, that bit of that dog, that bit of, you know, yeah. So you can have people that you follow, and I think actually my compare and contrast, really, I try not to go too far from an animal kingdom perspective, because we are animals, and as I feel like that's my grounding. You know, we are still animals, but we just have this a lot more meaning making that we can articulate. And so that's Alex's version of the world within an hour, which I don't speak for the whole time.
You might though, if we read away. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex. I'll jump in there now. Just this discussion has, where I'm taking this for me, since this discussion is now giving me more insight into who I would get as an assistant coach for me, and who would probably be the best to compare and contrast with my style. So looking at applying this knowledge to get what I would believe as the perfect combination of having the compare and contrast in the coaching style. And that's where I'm taking it for me. And then I can see, okay, if I'm going to mentor or be mentored by a coach or look for a coach who I would now consciously choose someone that is totally has a contrast in style to myself, and looking for the killer combination within the compare and contrasting styles, coaching styles. So thank you for this conversation. Now I just narrowed my assistant coaching staff down from 2 to 1 potential applicants. But no, yeah, and understand, and this here, I don't know if it would. I believe it'll work. I believe that would just take it to another level in terms of my coaching, having someone to compare and contrast strategies, and instead of just having the same, the same person with the same thinking, with the same strategies. There's no flavour. I like a bit of flavouring and things. So this is where I'm going to apply it, an area of my life after this discussion, conversation, and I'm looking forward to these new learnings and applying these new learnings into my coaching, into my coaching style.
I've got a question. Does your one potential applicant know that they're a potential applicant?
You don't know yet, Alex. You don't know yet, Alex.
Okay, I don't know yet. You don't know what
yet,
don't I know?
Yeah,
I don't know yet.
No, they don't know yet. They don't know who they are.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Got a summary for us? We'll call this to an end.
Yeah, it's straight off. Love something that goes straight to application. I mean, considering we're doing it all the time, compare and contrast, and they're little computery, scientific-y, brainy things that are working all through with the ANS and everything that we know about how the body functions. I'm just really happy to have been part of the conversation, and looking forward to some more compare and contrast with my little mate here who hasn't left my knee. Yeah. And it's awesome. I'm just overjoyed.
Okay, thank you. So myself, the formula, it sort of points a little to strategy. What strategy have I got current for compare and contrast? Because as I was talking this morning, I can see that I've changed that. Does it need a bit of refinement? Is there some way I can loosen it up? So I'm going to have a little look at my own, I called it a formula before, but my own formula, therefore strategy of how I've been doing compare and contrast, and see if I can understand that a little bit more, so that not only can it help me enjoy the process of living more, but maybe also understanding someone else's process of how they're doing compare and contrast in their life. If I can understand mine, then I might be able to understand others a lot more, so that this process of living can be a little bit even more fun than it's been. So thank you very, very much. So that's my action, or my take home. Thanks everyone for being here, and thank you to those who have joined us. And we will be back again tomorrow at 9 o'clock with whatever occurs overnight is the next level of discussion. Thanks, guys. Thank you for practicing being you, and thank you very much for your incredible display of sharing.